It was supposed to be a family helping family. You know, your mom calls and asks if your brother can crash for a few weeks while he figures things out, and you say yes because that's what you do. You're the responsible one. You have space. You help. But it wasn't family helping family. It was my mom giving away my apartment to my brother without telling me my name was on the lease. And then it became a legal nightmare I never saw coming. I'm Jennifer Marshall, 32 years old. I work as a project manager for a tech company here in Seattle, and I thought I knew how to handle contracts, deadlines, and difficult people. But nothing prepared me for what happened when my mom decided that my brother's problems were more important than my rights. If you want to know how this spiraled into eviction notices, cease and desist letters, and a restraining order, keep listening. Let me back up. To understand why my mom did this, you have to understand my family. My parents divorced when I was 9. Dad checked out pretty thoroughly. Holidays, the occasional birthday call, that kind of thing. So it was me, my mom Carol, and my little brother Marcus. Marcus is 3 years younger than me, and from the moment he could walk, he was the golden child. I'm not being dramatic about this. Marcus was cute, outgoing, charming. He could talk his way out of anything. Forgot his homework, he'd get a teacher to extend the deadline. Crashed the car, Dad would buy him a new one, or at least help. Got fired? Family rallied around him to find the next job. Me? I was the quiet one, the planner. The one who made lists and kept promises. My mom used to say, "Jennifer's fine, she'll figure it out," which meant she didn't have to worry about me, and she could focus all her energy on Marcus's drama. I learned early that being reliable meant being invisible. By the time I was in college, I'd gotten used to it. I worked part-time, paid for most of my own tuition, did my own thing. Marcus, meanwhile, bounced from job to job, relationship to relationship, always landing on his feet because someone, usually our mom, would catch him. There's this line she said to me when I was 24 and had just signed my first apartment lease. I called to tell her about it, thinking she'd be proud. She said, "That's nice, honey. I hope you don't get lonely in a place that big." That was it. Not congratulations. Not that's a great achievement. Just the assumption that I'd be alone, and somehow that was a failure on my part. I never forgot that line. Fast forward to 8 years later, I'd worked my way up to a solid position at my company. I'd bought my current apartment in Queen Anne, a 2-bedroom, 1 bath with a view of the Sound, and a balcony big enough for plants and morning coffee. It was mine. I'd saved for the down payment, gotten the mortgage approved based on my income, and I was proud of it. The first month I moved in, I threw a small dinner party and invited my mom. She walked around, commented that the furniture was minimalist, and then sat in the kitchen while I cooked, asking me to explain things to her, what a 401k was, why I wasn't dating, whether I'd thought about having kids. She didn't say, "I'm proud of you," but that was normal. 3 years ago, March, I remember because it was when the cherry blossoms bloomed and my balcony suddenly looked like a postcard. My mom called on a Tuesday morning. I was at work, in a meeting, and I saw her name pop up on my phone. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. That was unusual. I stepped out of the meeting and called her back. She picked up before the first ring finished. "Jennifer, hi. Listen, I have a favor to ask you. It's not a big deal, but I'm hoping you'll be flexible." I didn't like the word flexible. Flexible meant something was about to become my problem. "What is it, Mom?" "Marcus is going through something right now. His apartment situation fell through, and he needs a place to stay for a little bit. Just a few weeks, maybe a month, until he gets on his feet. I know you have that extra bedroom, and I was wondering if he could stay with you." My stomach dropped. But I was at work, and I didn't want to have this conversation in a meeting room with the door open. "Can I call you back tonight?" "Sure, honey. Just think about it. He really needs this." I got off work at 5 and sat in my car for 20 minutes before I drove home. Here's the thing about being the responsible child. Everyone assumes you'll be responsible for them too, but I did think about it. Marcus had just ended a relationship. His girlfriend had thrown him out after he lost his job. Classic Marcus. And yes, part of me felt bad for him, but I also knew Marcus. He wasn't a stay for a month and leave person. He was a move in indefinitely and take over person. Still, my mom had asked, and if I said no, she would tell Marcus I'd said no, and then he'd be hurt, and she'd be disappointed in me, and the guilt would follow me around like a shadow. So I did what I always did. I said yes, and created a list of conditions. I called my mom back. "Okay," I said. "He can stay for 4 weeks, not longer, and he needs to follow some rules. He contributes to groceries, he doesn't have people over without asking, and he looks for work while he's there. After 4 weeks, he leaves." I was very clear. "Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much. You're the best. Marcus will be so grateful. I'll tell him to call you about when he wants to move in." She hung up before I could reiterate the 4 weeks part. Marcus called me that night. He was cheerful, grateful, charming. "Hey, Jen. So Mom said I could crash at yours for a bit. I really appreciate this. It's just temporary, you know, until I find a place and get back on my feet. 4 weeks, Marcus. That's the deal." "Yeah, absolutely. No problem." I should have known better. I did know better, but I didn't trust my own judgment because I'd been told so many times times that I was being selfish for not helping. That was my mistake. Marcus moved in on a Saturday. He showed up with 2 duffel bags and big plans. "I'm thinking about starting my own freelance thing," he told me, setting his stuff down in the spare bedroom. "I have some contacts. This is just a stepping stone, you know? A place to work from while I figure it out." I nodded. I'd heard these plans before. They never materialized. The first week was almost fine. He was on his best behavior. He did the dishes a few times. He went out for job interviews, or so he said. We fell into a routine. I'd work from home on some days, and he'd be on his laptop in the spare room, networking, which meant spending 8 hours scrolling through social media. But by week 2, the cracks appeared. He started having people over, not just one friend, groups of people. They'd come over after I'd mentioned that I had an early meeting the next day, and they'd stay until midnight, laughing loudly, raiding my fridge, leaving pizza boxes and beer cans on the living room table. I asked him to stop. "Come on, Jen, they're just friends. I'm isolated here. I need social connection. You can have friends over, but not on weeknights, and not until midnight. I have work." He agreed. Then he did it again 3 days later. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how he started treating my apartment like it was his. He rearranged furniture without asking. He used my expensive coffee maker and left grounds all over the counter. He brought in a gaming console I didn't know he had and set it up in the living room, right in front of my TV, which I used for actual work sometimes. "Marcus, you need to ask before you move things around." "Dude, it's just furniture. Relax." "Dude." He called me dude, like I was one of his friends, not the person whose lease he was living under, and then I called my mom to talk about it. "He's settling in," she said. "That's a good sign. It means he feels comfortable. You should be glad he's not depressed or withdrawn." "Mom, I set boundaries. He's not respecting them." "Jennifer, he's going through a hard time. Can't you just be patient? He's your brother." There it was, the weapon. "He's your brother," as if that meant I had to let him dismantle my life. 4 weeks, I reminded her, and he's been here 3. Maybe he'll need a little longer. You don't know what he's dealing with. That's not my responsibility. But it was. Somehow, it was. Week 3, I came home from work to find a water stain on my kitchen ceiling. When I asked Marcus about it, he said he didn't know anything about it. He'd been out all day. But the stain was above his bedroom, and when I went up there, the bathroom sink was leaking underneath, water pooling on the floor. "Did you call the landlord?" I asked him. "No, I thought you would." "Marcus, you're living in a rental. This is serious." "When was this?" "I don't know. Maybe this morning?" I didn't really pay attention. I called my landlord immediately. The damage was going to cost money to fix, and it could affect my security deposit. I was furious, not just at the leak, at the carelessness, at the fact that he couldn't be bothered to notice or care. That night, I texted my mom a picture of the damage. Her response was immediate. "Don't blame him for that. It's an old building. Things happen." Then she texted our family group chat, me, her, and Marcus. "Jennifer's frustrated about some water damage. I'm sure we can all work together to solve this. Communication is key." And that's when it started. My cousin Sarah replied with a thumbs up emoji. My Aunt Michelle sent a message. "Family is everything. Let's not let small issues come between us." Small issues. Not a, "my brother isn't respecting my home or my rules" issue. A small one. My mom followed up. "Jennifer has always been independent. Maybe this is an opportunity for her to learn to be more flexible and family-focused." I stared at my phone. In one text, she'd reframed the entire situation. I wasn't the one being treated unfairly. I was the problem. I was selfish, rigid, not family-focused. I didn't respond, but Marcus did. He sent a long message about how he appreciated me letting him stay, and he was sorry if he'd been a burden, and he just needed a little more time to get his life together. It was manipulative and charming, and exactly the kind of message that would make the family rally around him, and they did. Sarah sent a prayer emoji. My aunt asked if there was anything she could do. My mom said, "I'm proud of you, Marcus, for owning up to things." Jennifer, see? Communication. The group chat became a referendum on my character. Then something didn't add up. I realized that Marcus had told my mom he'd been looking for jobs, but I'd never seen him go on a single interview. His LinkedIn hadn't been updated. He slept until noon most days. And when I'd asked him directly about his job search, he'd been vague. That's when I decided to check the lease. I pulled the document out of my filing cabinet and read it carefully. My name was on the lease. Only my name. No one else was authorized to occupy the apartment except for me, the tenant. There was a clause about guests. A guest could stay for 14 consecutive days, or 30 days total per year, with the written consent of the landlord. Marcus had been there for 21 days. I had not informed the landlord. And my mom. My mom had no idea she'd put me in a legally compromising position. Or maybe she did, and she didn't care. I spent the entire next day researching Washington state tenant law. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, opened a notebook, and started writing down dates and incidents. October 12th, Marcus moved in. October 14th, water damage incident, no landlord notification. October 16th, group chat revelation, family pressure. October 18th, damage inspection reveals foundation issue, building's responsibility, but my reputation on the line. By day 24, I knew I had a problem. If Marcus was now considered a tenant, meaning he'd overstayed the guest period without landlord authorization, then I was in violation of my lease. The landlord could cite me for unauthorized occupancy. I could lose my security deposit. In a worst-case scenario, the landlord could begin eviction proceedings against me, or at minimum, issue me a notice to cure the violation. That's when I called a lawyer. My cousin had recommended someone, a woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in landlord-tenant law. I called her office on a Friday afternoon, not expecting to get through, but Patricia was between clients and could do a quick phone consultation. I explained the situation in as little detail as possible. Okay, she said. So your brother has been staying with you for over 2 weeks without written landlord consent. Your lease prohibits unauthorized occupancy. Your name is on the lease, which means you're the liable party if the landlord discovers this. What happens if they find out? It depends on your landlord. Best case, they send you a notice to cure. Remove the unauthorized occupant within a certain number of days. Worst case, they begin eviction proceedings against you for lease violation. The water damage complicates things because it could trigger an inspection. How long do I have? That's the thing. Legally, some landlords consider the notification period to start when the unauthorized occupancy begins. You're already past the grace period. I'd recommend getting written consent from your landlord immediately, or asking your brother to move out. I felt my chest tighten. And if he refuses to move out, then you have documentation issues, but we'll get there if we need to. For now, I'd suggest having a direct conversation with your brother, making it clear that the arrangement needs to end, and ideally doing it via text or email so you have a record. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and tried to figure out what to do. I loved my brother, in the abstract way you love family, but I didn't like him, and more importantly, he'd put me in legal jeopardy for his own convenience. I decided it was time to stop being nice. That's when I realized what this was really about. It was a Tuesday evening. Marcus was home, which was unusual. He was in the living room playing the gaming console he'd set up, some loud first-person shooter game with explosions and gunfire. I turned it off. Hey, he protested. We need to talk. He followed me into the kitchen. I had my phone in my hand, and I'd written notes in the Notes app. Clear, bullet-pointed, unemotional. 4 weeks was the agreement, I said. You've been here 25 days. I need you to move out by this coming Sunday. That's 6 days. He stared at me. What? Come on, Jen. I'm still looking for places. The market is insane right now. That's not my problem. The agreement was 4 weeks. Mom said, Mom is not on the lease. I am. And I've checked, Marcus. Legally, you've already overstayed the guest period. I'm in violation of my lease. So either you move out, or I have to ask the landlord to issue you a formal notice, and then we're in legal territory. His face shifted. He wasn't cute and charming now. He was angry. You'd really do that? Your own brother? I gave you a month. I asked you to respect boundaries. You didn't. So yes, I would. You're being selfish. I'm being responsible. There's a difference. He left the room and I heard his door slam. I immediately texted Patricia. I've asked him to leave by Sunday. What's my next step if he refuses? She called me back. If he refuses, send him a written notice. I can draft one. Keep it formal. Keep it documented. Don't have any more conversations without doing it in writing or in text. Do you have a witness? What do you mean? Someone who can verify that you made a clear request for him to vacate. Ideally written documentation, but a witness works too. I called my mom. I probably shouldn't have, but I wanted to give her a chance to help before this became official. Mom, Marcus needs to move out. He's had 4 weeks, and I need my space back. Silence. Jennifer, that's not fair. He's got nowhere to go. That's not my responsibility. He's family, which is why I'm giving him a 6-day notice instead of a 1-day notice. That's what family looks like to me. I cannot believe you're doing this. Do you understand what his life is like right now? I understand that my apartment is in my name, and I'm the one liable if things go wrong. I understand that I set a boundary, and he ignored it. He's going to be homeless, Jennifer. He's going to move back in with you, or find a roommate situation, or figure it out like he always does. But he can't live here. I hung up. That night, Marcus came into the kitchen while I was making dinner. Mom's upset with you, he said. I know. She's talking about how ungrateful you are. I didn't respond. Is there anything I can say to make you change your mind? No. Not even, no, Marcus. My decision is final. He left Seattle 3 days later. He didn't go to my mom's. He went to a friend's couch, texted the family group chat about how Jennifer had shown her true colors, and then didn't follow up for 6 months. My mom didn't speak to me for 2 months. When she finally did, it was stilted and icy, and she started asking about my personal life in that way that meant she was disappointed in me, but was trying to move on. I wish I could say that was the end, but it wasn't. 2 weeks after Marcus left, I got an email from my landlord. I have become aware that you may have had an unauthorized occupant in your unit. Please contact me immediately with an explanation. My heart dropped into my stomach. I called Patricia immediately. Okay, she said. Do you know how they found out? No idea. I didn't tell them. Your mom? I hadn't thought of that, but yes, it made sense. My mom was angry. My mom wanted to punish me, and my mom knew that Marcus had been living with me, so she would know that calling the landlord would create chaos. I had no proof, but I was certain. Gather everything, Patricia said. Dates, text messages, emails, lease documents, photos of the water damage, anything that shows the timeline and your attempts to enforce your own boundaries. I'm going to send your landlord a response. For the next 3 days, I did exactly that. I took screenshots of the group chat where my mom had undermined me. I printed out the lease agreement. I photographed the water damage. I found the original text where I'd told Marcus 4 weeks, and he'd responded, "Yeah, absolutely, no problem." I found the email from my landlord's maintenance person showing that the water damage had been reported on October 14th, and that they'd identified the source as a plumbing issue with the sink upstairs, Marcus's bathroom. I found the text I'd sent to my mom about the water damage, with her response, "Don't blame him for that." I created a timeline in a Word document. Every incident, every date, every boundary I'd set, and Marcus had ignored. When I looked at it all together, it painted a clear picture. I had been a cooperative, boundary-setting tenant who'd made an exception for family, and that exception had been exploited. I'd tried to enforce my own rules, and when that failed, I'd asked the occupant to leave. He had left. That was the story the documents told. Patricia wrote a letter to the landlord, professional, detailed, with attachments. She explained that Marcus had been a temporary guest who had overstayed the guest period without my knowledge of the lease implications, that I had become aware of the violation, and that I had asked the occupant to leave, at which point he had complied. She asked that the landlord provide written documentation of any damage assessment, and that I be allowed to address any violations in writing. The landlord's response came back within a week. "We have inspected the unit. The water damage is consistent with a plumbing failure, not tenant negligence. We do not hold you responsible for the damage, as it is a building issue. However, your authorization of an unauthorized occupant is a violation of your lease terms. We will require a $500 breach of lease fee, and you are now subject to monthly inspections for the next 6 months to ensure lease compliance. It could have been worse." Patricia explained that the fee was actually negotiable, and that the inspections were standard penalty enforcement. I'd gotten off relatively lightly. "Did you know?" I asked her. "Did you know my mom called them?" "I can't say for certain, but it doesn't matter. You have documentation of the situation in your response. If this escalates, we have proof that you handled it responsibly. It should have ended there." But 3 months later, I got a lawyer letter addressed to me, sent from an attorney I'd never heard of, representing Marcus. Marcus was claiming that he had established residency in my apartment, that he had lived there for a period of months. Wait, months? He'd been there 25 days, and that I had unlawfully evicted him without proper notice. He was claiming damages for emotional distress, and he was requesting that I pay him $15,000 in compensation. I read it 3 times, thinking I was misunderstanding. Patricia laughed when I showed it to her. "Is this real?" I asked. "It's real, and it's also frivolous. He lived with you for less than a month, as a guest. You asked him to leave and he left. There's no eviction here. There's no legal residency here. This is not going to go anywhere. So what do? We file a response. We include all the documentation. We make it clear that we have communication records showing this was always understood as temporary, that he left voluntarily, and that we have no obligation to reimburse him for anything. We filed the response. We included screenshots, text messages, emails, the lease agreement, and a statement from my neighbor, who I'd mentioned the situation to, confirming that Marcus had moved out with his belongings one afternoon. The case was dismissed within a month. But the message was clear. My brother, and possibly my mother, were willing to take legal action against me. The scenario I'd worried about, becoming entangled in a legal battle with my own family, had happened. The difference was that I'd documented everything. I'd acted legally and ethically, and I'd won. That's when something shifted. My mom called me a week after the case was dismissed. It was the first time she'd initiated contact in months. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you about what's happening with Marcus." I waited. I didn't volunteer anything. "He's not in a good place right now. He's angry, and I know he filed that lawsuit against you, which was wrong. I've told him that, but I'm asking you, as his sister, as family, to consider dropping it or working something out with him. The case was already dismissed, Mom. There's nothing to drop." "Oh," she paused. "Well, I'm still asking. I'm asking you to reach out to him, to be the bigger person." I took a breath. "I reached out to him for 4 weeks. I gave him a place to stay, food, utilities, shelter. He disrespected me. Then he lied about me to my landlord. Then he sued me. And you want me to be the bigger person? He made a mistake. He made many mistakes. And I set a boundary. I enforced it. And then I defended myself when he attacked. If that makes me the smaller person, then I'm okay with that. Jennifer, Mom, I love you. But I can't have a relationship where I'm always the one compromising, the one understanding, the one apologizing for having boundaries. Marcus needs to learn that his actions have consequences, and you need to stop protecting him from them." She was quiet. "I don't know if I can do that," she said finally. "Then I guess we have a problem." She hung up. A month later, I got a text from Marcus. He wanted to apologize and meet for coffee. I was skeptical, but I said yes. We met at a cafe near Pike Place Market. He looked tired, worn out. He apologized for the lawsuit, said his lawyer had pushed him toward it, and that he'd regretted it almost immediately. "I was angry," he said. "I was embarrassed. I didn't have my life together, and you'd thrown me out, and I needed to blame someone. You could have just talked to me. I know. I should have. I'm sorry, Jen. I really am." I accepted his apology because I believed he meant it. But I also also understood that apologizing after being caught is different from apologizing before damage is done. We didn't become close, but we established a new dynamic, a careful, respectful distance. He got his life together eventually. He moved to Portland, found a job in his field, got his own apartment. We text occasionally. We see each other once a year maybe, but the relationship had changed, and that was the actual consequence of his choices. As for my mom, we worked through it over time. She went to therapy. She read some books about codependency. She came to understand that protecting Marcus from every consequence wasn't helping him. It was enabling him. And she admitted to me, one afternoon over coffee, that she had called the landlord. "I was so angry at you," she said. "I felt like you were abandoning the family, so I did something stupid. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that I understand what you did was right, and it was hard for me to accept that. But Marcus lived here. He needed to face the consequences, and so do I, for enabling that situation. It wasn't a grand apology. It wasn't, 'I'm sorry for not believing in you,' but it was her owning her part in the chaos. That was enough. Today my apartment is exactly as I left it. No gaming consoles, no unauthorized occupants, no water stains on the ceiling. That got fixed. I still work in tech, still live in Seattle, still have a view of the sound that reminds me I did something right. My brother and I have a relationship, but it's not the close one I might have wanted. My mom and I are better, but there's a permanent shift now. We don't talk about family loyalty the way we used to. We talk about respect instead, and I learned something from all of this that I wish I'd known earlier. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're not unforgiving. They're not unkind. Boundaries are the structure that makes love possible. If you love someone and you don't have boundaries, you end up resenting them. You end up in situations like mine, where a simple family favor turns into a legal battle. You end up saying things you can't take back. My mom loved Marcus. She still does. But she loved him in a way that wasn't helping him. She protected him so thoroughly that he never learned to protect himself. I love my brother, but I love him enough to say no. That's the thing no one tells you about family. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse. If you've been in a situation like this, where family or loyalty was used against you, where you had to choose between your own security and someone else's feelings, I want to hear about it. Comment below. Tell me your story. And if you have a brother or sister or anyone in your life who pushes your boundaries, I hope you find the courage to be honest with them. I hope you don't wait as long as I did. Thank you for listening to this. If you found this story helpful, please like and subscribe. I'll be back next week with another story about what happens when family isn't really family.